take speed.
Butch, I think we'll start with you because to a number of people, February 29th is a very special day because it's leap year and it only happens once every 4 years. But to you, the 31st of February was an important date at one time. Can you tell us about that?
It wasn't an important date, it was the name of a band I was in. Where the name came from, I don't know. I think our bass player made it up. A guy named David Brown, and I just mentioned to him that there was no such thing as the 31st of February, and he smiled and said, "There you go."
There's your name.
I don't know how profound it was, but it was a good band.
What was the configuration and what was the sound, if you could
It's a
describe?
three-piece group, basically folk rock. Did a lot of Dylan stuff, Bird stuff, that kind of thing, back in the mid-'60s.
Now, Dickey, I'm going to address the same set of questions to you, only about a band called The Second Coming.
Yes.
Are your memories of that period fond ones?
Very fond, yeah. That was Barry Oakley and myself and Larry Reinhardt and Reese Wyman, Nasty Lord John playing drums. That was the beginning, some of the beginnings of the Allman Brothers, that group. We merged with Duane and Gregg and Butch with the 31st of February and formed the Allman Brothers Band.
So it's fair to say that it was almost a collision of those two entities.
Collision would be a good way to describe it.
That's what those Sunny Jam sounded like, too.
That's a question that I wanted to ask you. The sound of the Allman Brothers Band, how much of it was predetermined and preconceived versus that which came out of the natural interaction of the group members?
But it was not preconceived at all. The whole concept was just spontaneity. We'd set up and get all the equipment in town and build a mountain out of it and play as loud as we could, as long as we could, and whatever came out, that's what happened. Yeah. And the whole sound evolved and developed out of that, just that spontaneous jamming.
For example, Butch, where did the idea for the double drumming come out of?
It didn't come out, it just happened. We were in a house over at the Second Coming's house one afternoon and had two sets of drums there, and J-Mo started playing and I was playing and Dickey was playing and Duane and Barry Oakley and Reese Wyman. And we started a shuffle, and about 3 hours later we quit, and Duane went to the door and said, "Anybody in this room not going to play in my band, you have to fight your way out of here." And it just happened. J-Mo and I gelled and from the very beginning, and here again it was not preconceived, it just worked that way.
Yeah, I think originally Phil Walden's idea of dealing with Duane as an artist was a trio, Barry Oakley and Duane Allman and J-Mo. And so when Duane came to Jacksonville, he left with 6 of us instead of a three-piece band.
Dickey, can you recall the first time you ever laid eyes on Duane Allman?
Yeah, I was in Daytona Beach. Yeah.
Was there an instant camaraderie?
Well, I respected Duane a lot from the very first because of his guitar playing. He was a bit standoffish when I first met Duane. Duane wasn't a you didn't get to know him real quick, you know, so. And I don't know, Duane and I were a lot the same, you know, obviously being guitar players and then that sort of thing.
Hard-headed.
Yeah.
What was it, now as a guitar player yourself, what was it about Duane's playing that was so magical? Can you describe it?
No, I can't describe it at all. It was just approaching the art form, and he was very close to his emotions through the instrument, as is true of any great player. And I think Duane, without doubt, is considered probably the best electric slide player that we've experienced so far, and definitely one of the best blues players all around.
Yeah, all of that holds up so wonderfully on all of the
Yeah,
records
it does.
that he participated in. I'd like to ask the both of you about a rather memorable three-night stand at Fillmore East, which became one of the greatest live rock and roll albums in history. Do you have fond recollections of those gigs?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It was magic. It was our first time headlining the Fillmore. We kind of snuck in the back door on that one. We were supposed to be special guest to Johnny Winter, and after the first show, the first night, half the audience left after we played, so we got moved to headline the next one.
No
And
offense.
it would have probably been difficult to get that album as well as long as it was. If we'd have been special guests, we wouldn't have had enough time. So things worked out very well.
Do you remember anything special about the gig, Dickey?
Well, Bill Graham saying we were the greatest rock and roll band of all time. That's something I'll never forget. He was very kind to us.
Now, normally at that time in the record business, it was still the rule of the land that you needed a hit single for the album to be successful. No hit single, and the Allman Brothers were right up there at the top of the charts. How
With
did
a
you,
live record.
With a right.
That was-
How do you explain that?
2 years of playing every city in the country.
Yeah.
We built a following. And we worked very hard for 2 years and built our following, and when that live album came out, that's what everybody was waiting for.
Any memories of the closing of the Fillmore?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't so much the last night, it was the next to the last night. We played 6, 7 hours.
Yeah.
When we finished playing, they opened the doors and the sun came in. And when we
We
finished,
didn't realize it was daylight, you know. We thought it was about 4 in the morning.
and we finished I think we played about a 3-hour mountain jam that night. We finished playing.
Well, we had every
and-
player in New York sitting in with us.
It was just some magic that night. We were clicking. Every time I'd go to play something, 2 or 3 other guys in the band were already doing it. There was just a lot of communication between us and the audience. And when we finished playing that mountain jam, there wasn't a peep from the audience. No applause, nothing. Everybody just sitting there with a smile on their face. And we walked out front, and this is your New York crowd. You know, they're not normally too mellow up here. And people would walk by, just a nice smile saying thanks. And that was special.
You sometimes wonder if after an occasion like that, what you remember more is the event of it or the music, because the two tend to overlap. I've got another occasion in your careers where that might have been the case, and that was the biggest concert that ever took place in upstate New York in 1973 at Watkins Glen.
Right.
What do you recall about the Watkins Glen Festival?
600,000 people. That's what I recall. That was awesome. You walk out and look at 600,000. It was just people, row hill after hill, as far as you could see.
Yeah, it was pretty frightening.
Yeah.
Until we got started, until the whole thing got started. I'll never forget Jerry Garcia driving in there in a car. He wouldn't fly in the helicopter. He was afraid of the helicopter. And it took him 8 hours to drive in a car. But that was a great event. I think a lot of it had to do with the 3 bands that were playing were all of the same type music, and when one band stopped and the next band started, everybody stayed on the same note, and it didn't kind of twist the audience back and forth from one mood to another, and it was really a nice experience.
Do you think it could happen again?
No, I doubt it.
What has changed, Butch?
Kids. Kids these days, I don't think they'd put up with that kind of thing. The whole tribal feeling, going out and wallowing around in the mud or whatever. I don't think so. It'd be nice though. Maybe we ought to do
I
it
guess
again.
people
The
were there
band's
for a
doing
week.
Reunion. We ought to do it again.
I guess people were there for a week before the music started.
Yeah.
This is the hard question that I'm sorry I have to ask, but we're coming up on the 12th anniversary of the accident that took Duane's life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember where you were and what you were doing when you heard the news and how you felt? Butch, will start.
Yeah, I was painting my bedroom. Got a call from Red Dog, said Duane's been in a wreck, you better get out of the hospital. And we were all at the hospital, you know, when he finally passed away. And in fact, I had gone up with Red Dog to get some wine to try and calm everybody down, and we dropped the wine out in the parking lot. But yeah, I was painting my bedroom, painting it blue at the time.
Dickey?
I was in Sarasota, Florida, at a nightclub jamming with some people, and a friend of mine took me off stage and said that he had had a phone call from Macon, and that Duane had been in an accident. He didn't go into the details or anything at that point, but I knew it was very serious, and so of course then I went home and called Macon and got the report, and I, you know, I wasn't in town when Duane was actually in the hospital, but it took me a long time to really accept it. Your mind kind of protects you in that way, I think, sometimes. You know, I would have dreams that we were touring and we'd run into Bonnie and Delaney and Duane was playing in their band, you know, we'd say, hey, where have you been all this time? But it was a devastating event for all of us, and it's a wonder that we kept the band together and continued on, but we did.
Well, that's my next question. Was there a moment where you thought you'd have to put it to rest, or did you?
Well, I think that was the first feeling that all of us had. Well, you know, it's over as far as this music is concerned. And we were trying to console each other in the days preceding the services, and the best way we could find to do it was to play music. And so one thing led to another, and we've slowly realized that was the best thing we could do, was stay together and continue on. There was so much creative power in that group that that's the only way we were able to continue on without Duane.
You know, I think initially we were going to take 6 months off, try and get over it, you know, or come to grips with it or whatever. And after about a month, we were just slowly going crazy, trying to deal with this. And I think after about 6 weeks, we had to hit the road again. I mean, playing was the only way we could get out and get, you know, vent the emotions.
That is such a testimony to the great healing power of music in many respects. Oddly enough, in spite of the tragedy, the success got even bigger. Did you ever step back and analyze why that was, why it exploded onto another plane after that?
Well, it was headed that way when that happened.
There was a great momentum had been created, and it was just hard to stop it. I mean, not that the band was living off of what we had done, and that there was, like I said earlier, there was a lot of creative power in the group, and with the momentum that had been developed, it just continued on.
And Dickey was just getting to writing a lot and starting to sing.
And Chuck Level came into the group.
Right, Chuck came in. And like I say, and like Dickey said, the momentum was already there from the earlier albums. And we just picked it up and kept it going.
Are we stopping for a second? See how quick?
You learned so quick.
I'm in video. I'm in video. Yes.
What did Ted call y'all, vidiots?
Dickey, this is one of my favorite kinds of questions. Tell me everything there is to know about Ramblin Man.
It's in the key of A.
Well, I was in one of my songwriting frenzies about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I wrote that song, and I kept it to myself for a long time because I thought it was really too much of a country song for the band. And in some of our sessions, we would start playing around with it, and it started really developing into an Allman Brothers sounding song with the arrangement that ultimately was applied to it. So it turned out to be one of our biggest, well, it was the biggest single record we ever had. But I don't know, it's always funny to me because it's the one song I didn't think we should do. And
I think originally we were going to do that as a demo from Merle Haggard. I think when we started on it in the studio, that was the idea.
I was thinking real Nashville about it when I wrote it, but you know, things change when they get moved around like that.
Yeah, especially with all those guitars. Yeah.
This is another one of those hard to answer questions, but it did capture the imagination of the record-buying public, unlike anything else you had done. Why do you think that was?
I think it was a song that the common, everyday person could relate to. It's like, it seems to be a fantasy that everybody has, wanting to just pick up and travel and go when they feel like it, which not too many of us can do. And this song had that idea, and I think it related to the working man, trying to make a living and doing the best I can.
Great line.
And the song, it's one of those songs that was written like, I think probably most great songs are written, if that's considered a great song, but it wasn't thought out for a long period of time. It was an idea that I had carried around in the back of my mind, and then when it got time to write it down, it was 15 minutes and it came out. And there was not a lot of reworking the lyrics and that sort of thing. And the song held on to that bit of honesty that a piece of music needs.
It's a real singable song too. I think it's the first one we'd done that, you know, you just tap your foot to and sing along with. Easy to remember and easy to sing. Yeah.
Certainly broadened the audience for the band.
Yes, it did.
Last question. This might be the toughest of all. When one thinks of the Allman Brothers these days, one thinks of a really important and specific period in our lives, whether it was from '69 through the early '70s or what have you. That era is gone now, maybe never to happen quite that same way again. A, how do you feel about that fact, the way things have changed in the music industry since those days? And B, how would you like the Allman Brothers Band to be remembered down the road?
The change is inevitable. It's you know, things don't change; they stagnate, and you know, they're not going to stay like that. It was, like you say, an important part of our lives, definitely. But there was a time. The time came when it's time to move on, do something else, and it's good. It's the way it ought to be. And as far as I'm concerned, how do we want to be remembered? That's up to you.
I think everybody's doing a pretty good job of it. Let's leave it alone.
Fair enough. Gentlemen, continued success.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. I hope you did.
Sure.